Star dom guardiam, dilim dididididim, lutes seradolidom, seram, dim dim da 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 dim da 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 dim da di dum, dim dim da 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 dim da 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 dim da di dum. Non, là sera ravi, les toits à ce noir gris fera. Clair obscur, trouble de rature, trouvera effet. Clair obscur, bordé aux peintures, trouvera sans aide.
Expedition 33, a game that's been making waves across the gaming community. People have been singing the praises of this new JRPG made for a Western audience, so I've spent around 5 hours in the game, and in this video we'll be going over my first impressions. Hello everybody, this is CT of the CT Gaming Lab, where I dive into reviews for experienced and new gamers alike. If you enjoy this video, remember to like and subscribe, so let's go ahead and jump into the review. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a story-driven RPG developed in Unreal Engine 5 by French indie company Sandfall Interactive. The game is set in a fantastical fictional future of France. It begins on the small island of Lumiere, where its people are preparing for the 33rd Gommage. The Gommage is an annual event that began 67 years ago, where an entity called the Paintress on a faraway island ominously paints a decreasing number, causing anyone of the same age as it to fade away. Every year, the citizens of Lumiere launch an expedition to take down the Paintress and hopefully stop the countdown. Throughout my experience in the prologue, I really took my time to explore and become immersed in the setting. The voice acting in Expedition 33 is outstanding. The game is 99% voice acted, and there are only a handful of lines that are not voiced. The characters feel live, real, and relatable. Most notably, they interrupt each other in a very natural way, just how people in real life do. This may feel like a very small thing, but it definitely was a standout quality to me. Oftentimes, even in movies, characters will stop talking, as if they read their script up to the point where it cuts off, and they wait for the next character to quote-unquote interrupt them. This game does interruptions very well, and it makes them feel very natural.
Everyone knows the protocol.
Right, but they may have been in danger. Maybe this location has been compromised. Things change in the field.
There's a reason.
Protocol doesn't cover every contingency. You know that.
There's a reason. It's protocol.
The characters themselves, from my experience, are very well made. While my playtime with them was limited, I can definitely tell that there is a lot of character development and intrigue to be learned and experienced as the game goes on. Already, by taking my time in the prologue, I was able to feel a strong emotion and connection even with side characters in my very brief interaction with them. Speaking of emotions, let's segue to the part of the game that really shone the brightest to me, which is the music. Fun fact, the developer actually found their composer off a French video game forum and listened to his music that was uploaded to SoundCloud. A composer that was seemingly of little renown ended up being perfect for the job. The music in Expedition 33 was composed by Laurent Testard. The OST boasts around 8 hours of playtime, with every boss, main character, and zone having their own unique theme. Full disclaimer, I'm generally not a fan of French as a language, nor a fan of string instruments. However, the soundtrack for Expedition 33 absolutely blew me away with how expertly it brought the scenes in the game to life. Just as a quick example, in the track Lumiere, I believe that the majority of the song is played by a small string ensemble along with a solo vocalist, which I believe her name is, excuse my pronunciation, Alice Dupour-Percier. As the song progresses, it slowly layers in more instruments, a piano, guitar, second vocalist, and it leads up to the climax, where the whole choir and orchestra joins in for a moment before the song descends back into the original string ensemble. Something that really stood out to me in the soundtrack is the constant use of a motif from that Lumiere track. Since I don't speak French, I was only able to pick out one lyric, constantly repeated, which was Clair Obscur. The notes used when Alice is singing Clair Obscur are used as a motif in a whole bunch of other tracks, most notably the combat tracks. It gives a feeling that the characters are fighting for their home or taking their home with them in those fights. A very small detail that some people may not have noticed. The overall sound design in the game is crisp and vibrant. Attack sounds match up with their animations and leave a satisfying feeling when performing moves. Hard-hitting spells and skills have deep, resonating booms that auditorially exemplify big damage being applied. When navigating the world, there's a nice attention to detail in the ambient noise. Splashing as you step on puddles, birds chirping in the distance in the forest, wind rustling the leaves of trees and bushes, and all that sound being dampened when you enter old ruined structures, being replaced by the creaking of old foundations. The combination of sounds and music give this a very strong atmospheric feel, making the game seem way more open than it actually is.
Take him down.
So we hit on the story, vibe, and music. Let's talk about the gameplay. Expedition 33 has turn-based combat with real-time quick-time events, or QTEs. The QTEs show up when performing certain attacks to give an opportunity to deal more damage or produce a special effect. When an enemy attacks your team, you have an opportunity to dodge, perfect dodge, or parry. If you successfully parry a single hit or every attack of a multi-hit combo, you can automatically perform a powerful counter. Some people may be turned off when they see it's a turn-based game, but I felt that the quick time events gave a good feel of that real-time combat. The combat feels challenging and it's very rewarding when landing a perfect dodge or parry. The QTE timing is tight and responsive, and different difficulty settings actually allow players of varying preferences or skill levels to experience more or less strict QTE timings. There is even a setting in a game to automatically perform QTEs for the player, if they just want to feel that traditional turn-based style. It should be noted that this setting only affects offensive QuickTime events and does not automatically perfect dodge or parry enemy attacks. There was some resource management in the form of AP, action points, and character-specific resources. Special skills and spells cost AP to perform, and individual characters have their own unique resources to manage. For example, Gustav has charges that he gains from performing normal attacks, skills, dodging, and parrying. When performing the skill Overcharge, he consumes all charges he's saved up to deal a large amount of damage. Some characters' attacks place an elemental charge on enemies, and then those elemental charges can be detonated by other attacks to trigger a special effect or to simply deal more damage. While I didn't get far enough in the game yet to have a full-size party, I can definitely tell that there's a lot of room for experimentation with team compositions. Characters can be built in many different ways. Skill selections and stat allocation can make characters play the role of buffer, healer, tank, fighter, single-target assassin, multi-target nuker, and a whole bunch of other roles in between. And to my indecisive gamers out there, fear not, because there is an item in the game that allows you to respec. While I can't speak on the abundance of this item, I believe I've already found about 2 of them in my first few hours, so I don't think it's that rare. Finally, let's go over the graphics and overall performance. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was made in Unreal Engine 5. So, at base, the game is very beautiful, colorful, and filled with high-resolution textures. I played the game at a mix of high and ultra settings, and after I made some tweaks, the game ran surprisingly smoothly for a UE5 game, and I did not run into any noticeable bugs throughout my 5-hour playtime. Combat animations are impactful and all-striking. Using an ability or hitting a successful parry or counter is incredibly satisfying. Again, this was in part due to a combination of animation matching with good sound. I wasn't a huge fan of the lighting in the early parts of the game, particularly when you arrive on the island. There's lots of fog interfering with visibility. This might have been on purpose for a more atmospheric feel, but I just want to see the whole game and how pretty it is. Additionally, the lighting exposure eye adaptation bothered me a pretty significant amount. Traveling between dark and bright areas yielded a constant flashbanging effect, and I understand this is supposed to mimic a realistic feel, but the way it was implemented was not really realistic at all. This is particularly jarring when the difference in brightness in areas does not seem to be drastic enough to even create such a dramatic light exposure reaction. This was just one nitpick I experienced though, and overall the visuals were very well done. And that brings us to the end here. So let's wrap up by listing some of the major pros, cons, and my overall thoughts on the game. Pros. The game runs very smoothly with no noticeable performance drops or bugs. The music is stunning and heart-wrenching. You can tell that the composer put a lot of passion and hard work into the soundtrack. The combat is tight and fun. The stat system is easy to understand. Quick time events, dodging, and parrying, it all feels good in this turn-based game. The characters are believable and relatable. I was impressed by the dialogue, particularly their ability to naturally interrupt one another. And now the cons. I wasn't a fan of the lighting in the game, especially this foggy filter they put over everything, even when you're in Lumiere. The light exposure eye adaptation was jarring, and in some instances it was not realistic at all. This is a small nitpick, but it was a bummer the game was only mostly voice acted instead of 100% voice acted. I understand this was a budget constraint for such a small studio though, and the unvoiced things are really not that important. Overall, at only $50 full price, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a fantastic game with a unique setting, memorable soundtrack, fluid combat, and great voice acting. It's essentially a AAA game made on a AA budget. The game did have some lighting features that I was not a fan of, but the positives and highs of my experience far outweighed any gripes I had. This game is definitely a gateway JRPG for Western audiences who just want to get into the genre. The combination of real-time combat features and a mainly turn-based system makes the game accessible to all types of players. And while I did play it on PC Game Pass, I believe this game is definitely worth purchasing at the full price. And that about wraps up our first impressions review. At the end of the day, these were just my thoughts and experiences with the game. Let me know down in the comments if you agreed or disagreed with my thoughts. I'm interested in seeing what your thoughts are on Clair Obscur Expedition 33. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.